I'm Bob Jenkins, along with Larry Newber. We return to Bristol International Raceway. We've had some Winston Cup races and some Grand National races over on the Oval, but today, drag racing.
Bob, it really is a pleasure to come here. You know, this is one of the most unique settings in all of drag racing. The strip is nestled between a couple of hills. There's a dog leg just past the finish line, and the fans really have dubbed this place Thunder Valley. And also, there's a lot of tradition here. They've been drag racing here since the early 1960s, and all the big names have won here. And it's very big and still very important to have a win here at Bristol.
Well, who do we look for today? One story that's developing is the twin turbo.
Yeah, the Pro Stock division should be the most interesting. We've got a turbocharged car, much smaller than all the others, competing against the big 700-inch cubic blocks.
Let's go to Brett Kepner, who'll be covering the pits for us today.
This is Bristol International Dragway, one of the most scenic racing facilities in the United States. And it is here that the International Hot Rod Association twice a year hosts national championship drag races that are some of the biggest in the country. Coming into this event, BID was sprayed with a top-secret traction compound that has yielded some near-record elapsed times that have already made this event one to watch. In the World Championship chase, Mark Oswald at the old Milwaukee Candy City Hughes Pontiac Trans Am had already wrapped the Winston World title in funny car, but has already recorded a 265-mile-per-hour speed here in qualifying. In Pro Stock Eliminator, Bob Glidden's 7-Eleven Chief Auto Parts Thunderbird is really screaming, having recorded a 7:25-second elapsed time that is leading the 16-car field. But his biggest rival is the turbocharged Buick V6 of Buddy Ingersoll that is making waves in the 700 cubic inch unlimited Pro Stock category. You'll be seeing this kind of action today on ESPN's coverage of the 1986 IHRA Winston Fallnationals.
Bob, I really believe that today's meet may be one of the more significant in drag racing history. The turbo really has a chance at winning. The emotions are very strong on both sides, love or hate, but it certainly threatens to revolutionize the sport.
The IHRA Fallnationals being brought to you by Motorcraft Quality Parts from Ford and by Drag Review, all you need to know about drag racing. We'll begin with the quarterfinals and alcohol funny cars in a moment. We're back at the Fallnationals in Bristol, Tennessee, and ready for the quarterfinal rounds in pro alcohol funny cars. Bob Jenkins and Larry Newber here, along with Brett Kepner down on the raceway itself. And set to go in our first race this afternoon will be Bunny Burkett against Dave Sebring. As you can see, the crowd, some of the crowd, gathered here for this Fallnationals drag meet at Bristol, Tennessee.
Bob, Bunny is just a couple of runs away from locking up the points championship. This is the first year that this division has had the real concentration and all the attention as a pro category. And I think everybody comes into this meet with the feeling that maybe they can win, because we've had, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7 different winners. And though Burkett has won 2, only 2 others have won 2 meets, and 4 others have won 1. So everybody feels like they have a shot. It's a real healthy situation.
Well, Bunny's opponent here in this round will be Dave Sebring, and he has 2 wins to his credit this year. Both races at Rockingham went to his on his side of the column. He's from Kent, Ohio, and Bunny Burkett hails from Sterling, Virginia. There's the Green Wizard, and there is Bunny's car as she gets staged and ready to go against Dave Sebring.
One of the more beautiful cars running in any type of racing, Burkett's car. These 2 people, Bunny, of course, the Lady Racer, and Sebring and the Green Wizard, they have emerged as 2 of the superstars in alcohol funny cars.
Now you can see both cars being staged. Bunny has her car staged, and now Sebring gets his online. They wait for the Christmas tree to flash green. Sebring staging now, and the green goes on.
Oh,
and Sebring out to a big lead here, gets the whole shot, and is going to win this one easily over Bunny Burkett.
Something apparently going on with Bunny at the line, or maybe just flipping of the switch. Hard to tell. There's Sebring's numbers.
216-mile-an-hour run for Sebring, a 6:51 and a 6:82 for Bunny Burkett, a speed of 211.26. Next up is Greg Moss from Fenton, Missouri. His opponent is going to be Jerry Schenkel. Greg is from a very familiar city as far as racing is concerned, Fenton, Missouri.
Yeah, we mentioned before, of course, this is the hometown of Kenny Schrader of Winston Cup racing fame. Greg is another one of what I would like to refer to as the Big Four that has emerged in alcohol racing this year. Burkett, we saw her in the last round. We also, of course, saw Sebring. Moss right now is second in points. and the other one is Fred Mandolini. He hasn't had quite the consistent success as the other three, but he has certainly shown a lot of miles per hour and a lot of speed.
And his opponent is going to be Jerry Schenkel, a veteran who hails from Canton, Ohio. Greg will be in the near lane, and Schenkel will be in the far lane.
Moss got here with a relatively modest 214 miles an hour, but Schenkel at 208 miles an hour got in despite his opponent, Al DePazzo, going 213 miles an hour. So on the basis of that, Moss should have the advantage.
Greg Moss defeated Tom Harding in the first round, and the green flashes on. A good race as they come down toward the line. It's a close one, and I believe that Greg Moss pulled it out.
Yeah, he did. There it is, 210 miles an hour. Moss picking up the win over Schenkel, coming in at 193. Geez, his run looked a lot faster than that. Schenkel obviously getting off the line well, but Moss seemed to have the more consistent of the two runs.
So Greg Moss will move into the semifinal round as our next two competitors get ready. Up will be Terry Mullins against Fred Mandolini, and there's Mullins' headshot and his car as he gets ready to go. He's from Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
T.O. Mullins going up against Fred Mandolini, who is capable of the high 210 miles per hour at any time.
The altitude and the weather, how do you set up a car for that, Fred Mandolini?
Well, we hope to see the thing run at least 223 or 224 this weekend. The weather conditions are going to play an important part in that because the humidity is very high here, and the alcohol motors don't seem to like that very much.
Comments from Fred Mandolini as he gets ready to go against Terry Mullins here in this quarterfinal round.
That's the optimism of a world traveler, a world explorer, I'll tell you. It's talking 220s because this strip, Bob, is just really not conducive to super high speeds. It's a very exciting racetrack. There have been some great races here through the years, but that's really setting your sights high.
Cars getting staged now. There is Terry Mullins getting his machine up to the line. And by the same token, the Oldsmobile of Fred Mandolini also getting set.
In the foreground, Illinois, and there, representing the state, the volunteer state of Tennessee, T.L. Mullins.
Two Oldsmobiles on the line, set to go here. The revs begin to come up now on the cars as they're directed to stage just a little further. Mullins pulling up now to the line.
Oh. Mullins really got the advantage. He was standing by and ready to leap as soon as the starter said go, and Mullins parlayed it into a win.
And there you can see the miles per hour for Mullins. He turns in a 213.77, a much faster speed for Fred Mandolini, 219.51, but Mullins with the much better reaction time, 172 to 364 for Mandolini.
The difference in reaction time is only 0.3 of a second to 0.2 of a second. But in cars that go 200 miles an hour in just 6 seconds, it was very visual.
Up next will be Bob Newberry against Pat Austin. Newberry comes here for the very first time. We ask him about setting up his car.
Well, we've never run at Bristol here before, and we've got some new cylinder heads on the car designed by Ken Vaney. And the first run, we set the fuel system up pretty much on the soft side, and I did shut the car off early. We're at 648, I think 195. We would have run a little quicker, and I think we'll go low 40s or high 30s if we get to run the car out the back door.
Newberry from Schenectady, New York, defeated Don DeFluter in the first round, and Pat Austin, his opponent here, will come into this round having defeated Bogey Kell in the first round of eliminations.
Both Newberry and Austin had 6.5s in their previous round. Newberry a little slower in terms of miles per hour, but as we know, that's not the most important thing in drag racing. It's how quick can you get down that line, assuming that your reaction time was good enough to keep you in the ballpark, but this could be a close one.
Bob Newberry in the near lane in the blue and yellow machine against Pat Austin in the far lane. There we are in the last event here in the quarterfinals. Pro alcohol funny cars.
The psyching of the staging continues to be one of the really fascinating stories and something to follow. It's a lot of fun in drag racing.
Austin is staged in the far lane. The revs begin to come up on the cars as they wait for the light to flash green.
They must be just seconds away from that green light post. And they're off. The green light is on. And Austin gets a little bit of an advantage off the line.
With the whole shot, he leads coming down, and Pat Austin wins with a 2:15.82, a 6:42.
Once again, we're seeing the significance of that reaction time. Bob, it was only 156 thousandths of a second for Austin in the red car on the left versus 190 thousandths of a second for Newberry, but it was enough to help propel him to the win.
Pat Austin moves into the semifinals. We'll be back more from the Fallnationals at Bristol in a moment. Back at Bristol, Tennessee for the quarterfinal activity in Pro Nitro Funny Cars. It's Ed the Ace McCullough against Paul Smith. We asked Ed McCullough about his season to date.
Well, you know, our performance has been off here a little bit this year, and we're not real pleased with that, but our parts breakage has been minimal. I mean, we haven't shot a blower off for quite some time, so, you know, that's a plus, but we need to work on our performance.
The ace hailing from California. His opponent here, Paul Smith, is from Boynton Beach, Florida, and Paul in a 1984 Corvette. Earlier in the year, he was in a Dodge Daytona, but his car owners parked it, and he took over the steering wheel behind this machine, a 1984 Corvette.
And Bob, earlier in the year, Smith had his best chance at maybe picking up a points championship. He actually led the points for a bit just before Mark Oswald started that big drive, which looks like, well, no, more than looks like, it has been successful. He is the funny car champion for this year, but Smith trying to hold on to second in the points.
Nitro fever in the near lane with Paul Smith. His car owner, Gary Cravens from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the green flashes on. Good race coming down. It looks like that Smith did it, by golly. He beat McCullough with a 2:47.93.
Smith was able to maintain constant acceleration all the way down the course. A lot of that is done with the accelerator, but also a lot of it is done with aerodynamics as well as steering that car as straight as you possibly can.
So a good run for Paul Smith as he moves now to the semifinals, and his crew goes to retrieve him. A nice run by Smith. 584 was the ET for McCullough's 593.
You know, Bob, so many people think that all there is to drag racing is acceleration and horsepower, and he who has the just dead fastest car with no other factors involved is going to win a race. There's a lot more to it than just that.
Up next, Doc Holliday from St. Paul, Minnesota against Jerry Caminito from Brooklyn, New York. There's a good look at Doc and his car.
Doc Holliday from St. Paul. It was a sprint car driver once by the name of Jerry Scratch Daniels from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Caminito will be in the far lane in a Trans Am. Doc Holliday's Dodge Daytona starts from the near lane.
Caminito has not had that many opportunities in final rounds. He's actually been around a long time, this pilot of Blue Thunder, a Trans Am. I'm sure he would like to do very well here today, running in historic Thunder Valley.
Car's getting staged now. Green goes on. And in the near lane, Doc Holliday with the advantage, but no, in the far lane, it is Jerry Caminito with a 238.72 run.
Difficult to assess exactly what happened, but you gotta believe it must have been related to mechanical, because Holliday really had that one covered until about 7/8 of the way down the strip.
Well, this should be an interesting contest. It's Tom the Mongoose McEwen from Fountain Valley, California, against Dominic D.A. Santucci from Glen Willard, Pennsylvania in Black Magic.
Santucci there on the left. You can see a nice shot at him. Guy who kind of goes in for the stealth aura as he assembles his racing team, maintaining that with the black color and nice bright purple, red, and yellow markings on the side. And there's Mongoose McEwen, who, by the way, picked up his nickname because of a lot of runs he used to have with the Snake down Prudhomme.
Here they go. It's a close race. It appears that, oh, Santucci pulled it out at the last moment. McEwen had the lead almost all the way down, but Santucci wins with a 237-mile-an-hour run.
Not only did he win, Bob, as we're going to take another look at here, just the final eighth of a mile or so of this run, but I think that is what is known as, on both of their behalves, a very expensive victory and a more expensive loss.
Big puffs of smoke from both of those cars, but nevertheless, Santucci has some opportunity now to go back to the pits and make repairs and get ready for the semifinals. Up next will be Bob Gottschalk against Mark Oswald. Gottschalk competing this weekend here in Pro Nitro Funny Cars, but he had a win earlier this year in Pro Alcohol Funny Cars.
Gottschalk from the Toledo, Ohio area, to be exact, Oregon, Ohio. By the way, talking about old sprint car racers, there was another one from that town. Anybody ever remember Carl Bussin? And, of course, Mark Oswald, Cincinnati, Ohio. A couple of Ohioans going at it here, going at each other's neck. Oswald has to come in here as the overwhelming favorite, the champion of this year. He's got more experience than a lot of the people he's running against here at Bristol this weekend. And based on what he has shown so far in 1986, everybody's going to be looking over their shoulder, sideways in this case, at the red Oswald car.
Pontiac Trans Am of Mark Oswald in the near lane against the Chevy of Bob Gottschalk in the far lane. This is our final run in the quarterfinals of Pro Funny Cars.
On a situation like this, Gottschalk has got to be looking over at Oswald, trying to emulate everything Mark's doing, and Gottschalk just does not get away from the line.
Easy win for Mark Oswald. It's a 263.15 mile-an-hour run, 566. And for Gottschalk, a 656, 205.47. Gottschalk actually with the faster reaction time, but that's about all that he can say for that run as Oswald came on strong.
Yeah, then it began to unravel. Before he reached the finish line, it completely came undone.
And so we have completed the quarterfinal round in Funny Cars. Back with the Pro Stock Division after these messages. Well, there is the story of the weekend so far. The twin-turbo Buick V6 engine in the car driven by Buddy Ingersoll. Now, this engine has 268 cubic inches compared with about 700 cubic inches of the other motors that are running here. This car has performed very well this weekend, the V6 Buick, and Buddy Ingersoll getting set to go here in the quarterfinal Pro Stock round against Billy Ewing.
Turbocharging, of course, is something that we have seen on single-seater open-wheel racing, both here as well as across the Atlantic the last couple of years. Interesting story as we take a look at Billy Ewing. Everybody seemed to be against the turbocharging when the season began. There was little success. You didn't hear too much about it, and now they're beginning to talk again. And here he comes again, Bob.
Yeah, he came from behind as the whole shot went to Billy Ewing, but Buddy Ingersoll pulled out the win with a 187 mile-an-hour run, 7.38.
As we look at the top end, Bob, the reaction time was dramatically different. Ewing got away at .079 or 79 thousandths of a second, while Ziegler was 3/10 of a second.
Ricky Smith is up next. We asked him about his engine.
We don't like a big cubic inch stuff right now. It seems like a smaller 650, 630 is running real good for us. So that's where we're trying to stay.
Smith's opponent in this round is going to be Ed Dixon driving a Thunderbird.
He says smaller, 630 cubic inches. Some of these other people, maybe Dixon has one, for instance, running Hindenburgs underneath the hoods up to 700 cubic inches.
Now, Ricky Smith, I would have to think, goes into this race as the favorite against Ed Dixon from Maryland Heights, Missouri in the near lane, Ricky in the far lane, but anything can happen. Let's see what happens.
Ricky, the 1986 IHRA Winston Points champion in the stock race.
And Smith with the hole shot as they come down. He maintains the lead, and he wins it going away.
Boy, from that shot, Bob, it almost looked like a hydroplane racer. Smith, you could see that car almost skimming along the top of the strip as he got a good bite all the way down the quarter mile here at Bristol.
7:49 for Ricky Smith, a 187.50 mile-an-hour run as he moves into the semifinal round. And up next is going to be Bob Glidden as we see Ricky Smith pulling off the course and going back to his pit area. Up next is going to be Bob Glidden against Roy Hill, and this should be a tremendous contest. In the previous round, it was Bob Glidden defeating Barry Shirley and Roy Hill down to Darrell Alderman. And now Glidden is in the far lane and Hill in the near lane.
As we look at Roy Hill, I got to tell you, Bob, the season that Glidden has had has really impressed me. He had that very serious accident earlier this year, and at the time it happened, I described it as something that he just didn't really expect to happen as we continue to look at the Hillbilly. But Glidden has come back from adversity and has really turned in an outstanding year.
Roy Hill getting that Ford Tempo set to go against Glidden's Thunderbird, so a couple of Ford products on the line here.
Even though Glidden is not leading points in IHRA, he has the most wins, 5 so far in Pro Stock competition.
Glidden, the fastest qualifier here this weekend. Roy Hill, on the other hand, was 9th quickest qualifier. They get set to go. Glidden once again in the far lane. Let's see what happens. A little bit of sight job going on here as both are a little bit hesitant to get staged. Now Glidden begins to inch forward. The light goes on. Glidden with a good hole shot gets those front wheels off the ground just a little bit. They come down, and Glidden is going to win it.
Well, you know, often you see that Evel Knievel move as we look at Bob Glidden's time in miles per hour. The Evel Knievel move where the front wheels come off the ground doesn't work to your benefit, but Glidden is on such a roll, it just seems like that nothing can slow him down.
Bob Glidden with a 7:35 and Roy Hill with a 7:54. So Bob Glidden moves into the semifinal round. And getting set to go now will be Jim Ruth from Moorhead, Kentucky, against Terry Adams from Wilkesboro, North Carolina, a town that we're rather familiar with because that's, of course, where they run the Winston Cup race that we cover every year.
Jim Ruth went 191 miles an hour in the last round when he beat out Gary Duckworth. Also, he's a little longer in terms of the experience in final round competition than his competition here, Terry Adams. So you have to be looking toward that far lane if you're thinking in terms of a favorite for this run.
Terry Adams defeated Al Waters in the opening round. It's Ruth in the far lane, Adams in the near lane. Adams an independent here with not a whole lot of money behind the operation, but he gets the hole shot. Let's see what happens. He really blasted off that line, and he holds the lead, maintains it, and beats Jim Ruth. Terry Adams wins.
And we're now getting the readout on his reaction time. He was so much quicker off the line than Ruth, Bob. I thought he had red lighted, but the difference was about 1/3 of a second. Ruth was that much slower. Maybe he was as amazed as we were up here watching that reaction time.
Ruth slower off the line, but he was 10 miles an hour faster, but loses to Terry Adams. Back with more right after this from the Fallnationals. Bob Jenkins, Larry Nuber, and Brett Kepner back at the Fallnationals in Bristol, Tennessee. Semi-final action in the Alcohol Funny Car division. It is Greg Moss in the far lane against Pat Austin in the near lane. Pat looking to become the youngest champion in IHRA history. He's in his early 20s and looking for a victory here this afternoon.
And Bob, this is his first big test. He's kind of waltzed through a couple of other competitors to this point, but he goes up against one of the real heavyweights in Alcohol Funny Car.
Pat Austin from Tacoma, Washington against Greg Moss from Fenton, Missouri. There's the light and a hole shot for Greg Moss. But coming on in the near lane, it's a close race. I think maybe Austin got him right at the line. He did. A 6:41, 2:15.31, and Pat Austin defeats Greg Moss.
Sometimes it's the way you're geared, and sometimes the way the driver shifts. Sometimes the driver does have a very active role in a win.
A tremendous victory by this young man. And let's go now to Brett Kepner, who is with Pat Austin at the end of the strip. Brett?
The helmet comes off for the young man from Tacoma, Washington, who obviously is now moving into the final round of his first ever IHRA Winston National event. Pat, another 640 performance. The machine is definitely flying.
It's coming around. We started out slow this weekend. We had a problem last weekend of hurting the motor, and we just slowed it down and just crept up on it every run and done what it takes to win, you know?
640 again in the final round, or going into the final round, should indeed give you lane choice, and you may indeed have this first IHRA appearance wrapped up.
I'm hoping so. I'm real happy to be here, and I just can't believe the performance of the cars. They stepped up so much, it's unbelievable.
Well, the Waltz Muffler team will be giving it the best shot, I know.
One thing, all the friends calling Washington, I made it on TV.
In fine style. And with that loss by Greg Moss, Larry, Bunny Burkett clinches the Alcohol Funny Car title for 1986. Getting set to go, Dave Sebring against Terry Mullins. Earlier, I gave Dave Sebring a win that he didn't deserve. He's only won once this year at Rockingham. He's looking for number 2 here this weekend. He has the advantage down the line, and Sebring beats Mullins, but just by a nose.
Boy, it was. Sebring won that, but Mullins never gave up, stayed right with it all the way down the line, kept thrashing away, pounding on the side, pounding on the hips of his steed. He almost pulled it off, but not quite enough.
A 6:45.3 for Sebring, a 6:45.9 for Terry Mullins. That's as close as you can get him.
And it also sets up a tremendous final. Both Sebring and Austin turning in 6-4 to get themselves to the final.
Well, we go now to Pro Nitro Funny Cars and semifinal activity. This is Mark Oswald against Paul Smith. Oswald, of course, in the near lane in that Candies and Hughes machine, and Paul Smith in the far lane.
Oswald, the big O, the only driver who's been knocking off 5 6s and 5 7s with consistency this weekend. Is he going to do another one?
He did it. It's Mark Oswald in the finals with a 262.39, a 575 ET.
That's number 1 in points against number 2. And even though Oswald in the red car has clinched the Funny Car Championship, this is one I'm sure that Smith would like to have had. I think he's clinched second, though, Bob.
Well, up next in our drag racing activity will be D.A. Santucci. Santucci, as a matter of fact, burned a piston in the first round. He burned a piston in the second round, but he keeps winning. Let's go to Brett Kepner in the pits for a further report.
Although this looks like a repeat from our last visit to D.A. Santucci's camp, indeed, the same piston in the same hole of the engine, piston number 4, has once again burned through it. Now the Santucci clan suspects a fuel delivery problem. Apparently not enough fuel is getting to this particular cylinder. The engine is running lean, and it's burning this piston right out of the cylinder block each and every run.
D.A. Santucci in this round up against Jerry Caminito from Brooklyn, New York in the far lane.
Bob, I'll tell you, you hear about the 500 cubes with the Pro Funny cars, but you got to see a piece that comes out of there. It's as big as a battle axe. You don't realize it's nearly as big until you see it.
Santucci with the whole shot wins again, but again, a puff of smoke from that car. He may have done it again.
Boy, they are having a tough weekend in one sense. They keep breaking engines, but he also keeps winning.
234.37 for D.A., a 595. A better E.T., a 593 for Caminito, but his reaction time was much slower.
D.A. in the black car. He does go back a few years, and this may well be one of his best chances ever to win a main event.
We'll be back with more from the Fallnationals from Bristol, Tennessee after this. Back at the Bristol Dragway in Tennessee. You know, if you grew up in the 50s, there was nothing quite like a 57 Chevy. Here's Brett Kepner with a report.
Just about everybody knows what a 1957 Chevy Bel Air looks like. But standing behind us is the world's quickest and fastest 57 Chevy, or as they're called in drag racing, shoeboxes. This is the Thundercraft, all fiberglass 1957 Chevy, which runs only an IHRA Sportsman Eliminator, known as Top Sportsman Eliminator. This machine has already achieved a performance of 7.35 seconds at over 189 miles per hour. And this is the young man who drives this 600 cubic inch, nitrous oxide injected carbureted wonder. Robbie, what's it like to drive the world's quickest and fastest sportsman-doored machine?
Very quick. Very exciting.
Well, obviously, this machine is certainly rivaling the world's quickest and fastest Pro Stock machines in performance, so it's got to be almost the same type of ride.
Very close.
The big question, though, is the aerodynamics. This machine, 1957, was never built for 189-mile-per-hour quarter-mile runs. Is it that much harder to handle?
No, not really. The car's handled real well. As Ken Hoger, who built the chassis, says, I'd be the first that wind tunnel tested a 57 Chevy, and we have, on the track only.
Well, there's no question. At 190 miles per hour, the 1957 Chevy Bel Air, bearing the Thundercraft name, is one of the top spectator attractions at IHRA Winston Racing.
Did you ever think that you'd see a 57 Chevy going that fast?
Never brings back a lot of memories. I remember building models when I was a little boy. Looked something like that.
Well, here is the semifinal round in Pro Stock, and Buddy Ingersoll is getting set to go against Ricky Smith. The question is, can Buddy continue his great performance here this weekend in the turbocharged V6 Buick? He's got his work cut out for him against Ricky Smith, the current world Pro Stock champion for IHRA.
I'll tell you what, Bob, the way things have been going, I think that Smith may be the one who has his work cut out for him. Ingersoll once again at the disadvantage at the start.
Oh, a close race. Smith had the whole shot, but Ingersoll beat him. Believe it or not, a 192.30 for Buddy Ingersoll, a 733, 746 for Ricky Smith, and Ingersoll is going to move into the finals.
An absolute astounding race.
Oh.
It's almost hard to believe that Ingersoll won that race. He turned in another 7.3. That's his third one in a row. He'll be going up against Bob Glidden or Terry Adams, and one of those is really going to have his work cut out for him.
Well, stepping out of the car, what has to be his biggest win yet, buddy, a 733, 192 miles per hour from this thing, beating world champ Ricky Smith.
Oh, that was good. I mean, Ricky's, like I say last run, Ricky he's tough now. He puts it down the track every time, and he gets the job done. And it's when you beat somebody like that, it's really satisfying.
Well, your modesty is incredible, because there's no question that you indeed are also getting the job done with absolutely unbelievable times. And I've got to tell you, as I said to Bob Glidden in the last round, we're making history here in the final.
Well, the Buick V6 this weekend, we've been able to get everything just right, and everything's happening for us. And well, sometimes when it's your day,
Well, I'm sure you realize that we could indeed be changing the class of Pro Stock forever with this last run.
Well, it'll be awful tough to beat him, but we'll go up there and put a run on him anyway.
The twin-turbo V6 is in the finals. Who will his opponent be? Well, it'll either be Terry Adams from Wilkesboro, North Carolina, or Bob Glidden from Whiteland, Indiana. They're the two competitors in this go. And a bit of a David against Goliath here, as Glidden will definitely be the favorite going in, but Terry Adams has performed well here this weekend.
Listen to the numbers that Adams is up against. The last two rounds, 7.255 and 7.350 for Glidden. He peaked at over 194 miles per hour. Track record this weekend here at Bristol.
Glidden on the far lane has the advantage, but just by a little bit. Now he pulls it out and wins rather easily. Bob Glidden with a 190.27 miles an hour. Let's go to Brett Kepner, who's with Bob Glidden.
Shaking hands with Terry Adams, and a tough way to go, Terry. 730, 190 miles an hour for Bob. And Bob, I don't know if you know it or not, but Buddy Ingersoll ran 733, 192 in his semi, so you have lane chase.
I saw that. I knew Terry was going to make a good run, which he did. And the final ought to be even tighter.
No question about it. And as I told Buddy and I told you in the previous round, it is going to be history in the making. This is going to be the old style pro stocker against what many people consider the wave of the future.
I'm going to have to do my best for sure next round. These pro stock guys would shoot me down if this turbocharged thing wins this pro stock.
It'll be interesting to see whether Ingersoll can knock off Bob Glidden in the Pro Stock Finals. The finals in all our divisions are set. We'll be back in a moment. Back at the Fallnationals in Bristol, Tennessee. Yes, there are motorcycles that go 200 miles an hour. Here's Brett.
The International Hot Rod Association doesn't just deal with four-wheel drag racing machines. These are top fuel motorcycles, 7-second, 200-mile-per-hour missiles that take more guts than anything to control down the quarter mile. With me is Fred Robbins. Fred, your machine uses a turbocharger and nitromethane fuel to run in the 7-second zone, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the turbocharger actually works off the exhaust, but this machine can still keep pace with the supercharged entries.
Yes, sir.
And over to my right is indeed the man who became the first to break the 200-mile-per-hour barrier on two wheels. This is the old man of top fuel motorcycle racing, Elmer Trent. Elmer, you ran 200 miles per hour flat at an earlier IHRA race this year. Are you capable of hitting that number with this incredible supercharged Kawasaki here this weekend?
Oh, yeah, it's capable of doing it if I can stick it all and get it all in the right direction.
Well, I have to ask you, what is the roughest part of riding a 7-second, 200-mile-an-hour top fuel bike?
The leave and the shutdown area.
Well, these machines don't use parachutes. Just one brake is used to slow these machines for 200 miles an hour, and that's got to be tricky.
Well, if you get any kind of misalignment in the asphalt, it tends to want to move the motorcycle around and kind of makes it hard. So the shutdown area is pretty critical.
Fred, is there any serious problem with the turbocharged bike that Elmer doesn't experience?
Well, it's not near as hard on transmissions and drivetrain parts. It makes more horsepower on the far end of the track than up here at the starting line.
There's no question. These are some of the most awesome machines you'll ever find in IHRA Winston drag racing.
All I can say is, Brett, no thank you. Here are the combatants in our finals of the Pro Alcohol Funny Cars. On the left, Pat Austin from Tacoma, Washington. He's defeated Bob Newberry and Greg Moss. On the right, Dave Sebring. He has defeated Bunny Burkett and Terry Mullins.
Pat Austin, the 21-year-old, has shown some real strength here, particularly leading up to his finals run. He's had a 212, 216 miles per hour, even had an opponent who went 6.4 ET, and Austin beat him. Dave Sebring, talk about miles per hour. He had 3 216-mile-per-hour runs in a row, and one of them pushing 217. First chance ever for young Pat Austin to win. Sebring, the veteran, it could be outstandingly exciting.
Sebring is in the far lane and young Pat Austin in the near lane. A little bit of a sight job going on here as the veteran Sebring perhaps toying with Austin's mind just a little bit as far as staging is concerned. You can see they haven't quite staged to the final light yet.
Jim Blakely, the official IHRA starter, really doing an excellent job. Look at him standing there, very nonchalant, Bob. He says, hey, guys, it's in your hands right now. I can't do anything until you move up.
There we go.
The
light goes on. Austin with a hole shot. Does he have his first win ever in IHRA? Yes, he does. Pat Austin wins in alcohol funny cars.
Have to consider it somewhat of a surprise. It is the first year for alcohol funny cars, but Sebring has been a winner before.
And there was the margin as Pat Austin went 216.34, a 642 ET. Great run and a great weekend for young Pat Austin. Let's go now to Brett Kepner with the interview with the winner of our Pro Alcohol Funny Car division.
Woo! This is it, boys. I'm glad to be here. We're going to be around for a long time.
Well, big question is, obviously, you seem very pleased with the IHRA Pro Alcohol Funny Car Class.
Yes, I am. I'm very happy, and we'll be around a long time. We're going to beat almost every race they got. I mean, as many as we can be there. We're just going to go around and race next year and have fun.
Well, this makes you certainly the youngest champion in the history of the new Pro Alcohol Funny Car Class. And once again, congratulations on your first appearance and a big victory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tim Pavoka, thanks very much, too.
That's Pat Austin, the winner of Pro Alcohol Funny Car. Now in the Pro Nitro Funny Car Finals, it's the guy who's already clinched the World Championship in this division for 1986, Mark Oswald, and his opponent is going to be D.A. Santucci.
Oswald really with the leg up on this one. He comes in after turning in runs of 263 and 262 miles per hour and seemingly effortless 5.6s and 5.7s. And Santucci comes in. He's had a good weekend, but he's only turned in 5.9. So for him to beat Oswald, the reaction time at the line is going to have to be far superior to Mark's, and the car is going to have to be engineered to really outpower that Candies and Hughes machine as they get down near the finish line.
Light goes on. Looks like Santucci might have the advantage off the line, but here comes Oswald, and Oswald wins.
Santucci continues to scatter them. He has lost an engine, Bob, I think, in every round since he moved into the final 8. That means 3 engines he's lost here this weekend. And there you can see Oswald winning easily, crossing the line that sets off the elapsed time, or the mile-per-hour clock, and taking home the victory.
So Mark Oswald didn't need the win here this weekend to assure his championship, but he gets it anyway over D.A. Santucci. Once again, down to the line, and Brett Kepner.
Well, as the 1986 world champion, and I might add winning your 3rd world championship on the IHRA Tour in 4 years, it's kind of nice to close the event this way.
Yeah, it's always nice to end the season with a win. You don't have to think about losing all winter.
Well, on behalf of ESPN, we thank the entire Candies and Hughes Old Milwaukee crew for being with us and a tremendous job.
Thank you, guys.
Oswald and Austin are winners. Will it be Glidden or Ingersoll in Pro Stock? We'll be back in a moment. We are back at the Fallnationals at Bristol Dragway in Bristol, Tennessee, and ready now for the Pro Stock Finals. The 2 contestants from Whiteland, Indiana, Bob Glidden on the left, and from Ziegler, Illinois, Buddy Ingersoll on the right. Ingersoll, of course, will run the twin turbocharged V6 Buick against the normal, shall we say, power plant of Bob Glidden.
Glidden's V8 Thunderbird versus Ingersoll's Buick Regal. The Buick Regal, 268 cubic inches against a refrigerator underneath the hood of Glidden's car.
Well, Ingersoll has had such a successful weekend this weekend. For really the first time this year, he has gotten himself into the finals, but he has a lot of work to do if he's going to beat Bob Glidden, who's staging here in the near lane.
Bob is going to take a 190-mile-an-hour run, an almost unheard of time a couple years ago to win this one.
Let's see what happens. Ingersoll is now ready in the far lane. The Pro Stock Finals set to go. Green light comes on. Good reaction for Buddy Ingersoll in the far lane, but here comes Glidden pulling ahead and winning by just inches, it looks like. 193.96. Bob Glidden's ET was 7:28, a reaction time of .099. Ingersoll with a reaction time of 0.60.
And Bob Glidden saves face and maybe bragging rights for the entire clan for another winner.
So Bob Glidden from Whiteland, Indiana wins another IHRA drag race. Let's go to Brett Kepner and get Bob Glidden's comments.
Bob Glidden has just scored a big one for the Pro Stock fanatics who enjoy the 700 cubic inch mountain motor type of machinery. And Bob, this was one that really counted, defeating Buddy Ingersoll here in the Pro Stock final round, 728, 193 miles an hour. You got around the V6.
I think it was a good starting line lead for both cars, and I think the turbo just didn't have enough stuff down at this end.
Well, it ran 737, 189, so it did slow down, but even so, it hadn't been in the 20s.
I'll tell you, he did an excellent job getting the car. He's fought that thing throughout the season. Apparently he's got it worked out fairly well. My hat's off to him. I'm not a turbo fanatic by any means, but I think Buddy's done an excellent job. I just want to thank the people, the sponsors, Ford Motor Company, Motorcraft, the people at Southland Corporation, Cheap Auto Parts, 7-Eleven, Citco, and I guess most of all, I need to thank the people at ESPN for coming around and chasing this racing and drag racing and helping us out.
Congratulations, Bob, and thank you for the fine words. And Larry, you got to believe that that turbo V6 is the engine of the future.
Yeah, you really do. And by the way, I would like to also add that Glidden is a very nice man. Apart from the ESPN compliment, he's a very deserving winner. Both of them had tremendous reaction time. 0.060 for Ingersoll, 0.9099 for Glidden. Tremendous reaction from both drivers at the line. And I think we are seeing a part of the future here today.
We'll be back with some closing comments as we have concluded the Fall Nationals from Bristol Dragway. Back in just a moment. So by way of review here at the Fall Nationals in Bristol this afternoon, the winner in Pro Stock was Bob Glidden. Mark Oswald walked off with the Pro Funny Car Championship, and Pat Austin won the Alcohol Championship. Let's go to Brett Kepner for his closing comments.
The 1986 IHRA Fall Nationals capped one of the best seasons ever for the International Hot Rod Association and won an event, especially the historic Pro Stock final round battle between Bob Glidden and, of course, Buddy Ingersoll's diminutive Buick V6. The Pro Funny Car season title went to Mark Oswald, and it was only fitting that he indeed should win the final event of the year. And Pro Alcohol Funny Car, what a way to go for a first full season of that exciting new category, with 24-year-old Pat Austin taking his first major victory. We'll be back in 1986 with more ESPN coverage of IHRA national events. This is Brett Kepner in Bristol, Tennessee, saying thank you for being with us.
Thank you for your work today, Brett, in the pit area. Darkness prevents us from showing you the sportsman winners. However, Larry has a rundown of who they are.
The top sportsman winner was Doug Bays. He had a very stout reaction time in winning at .011. Gene Fulton dialed in the modified. He's the defending winner. Actually had a breakout, but so did his opponent. Quick Rod, the defending winner there, won again also. Hugh Fuzzy Norton. He had turned in last year an unbelievable reaction time of .006. That's 6/10,000ths of a second. It was good this year, but not quite that strong. Super Stock to Roger Keeling of Scott Depot, West Virginia. Super Rod to Glenn Norton from Purcellville, Virginia. The Hot Rod, the full-bodied cars, to Danny Carr. And the stock division went to Randall Campbell of Gray, Kentucky.
Well, it's been an exciting season of IHRA drag racing here on ESPN, capped off with this unbelievable situation here this weekend, as you have a great look there at Thunder Valley. The Ingersoll Glidden contest this afternoon, probably the highlight of the entire weekend, with Ingersoll going to the finals in that Turbo V6, but just not able to pull it off.
Well, I'll also make mention of Bunny Burkett. I think 1986 in many ways has been the year of the lady race driver. Many of them have come to the front and showed themselves to be very bona fide racers. Bunny was the champion in Pro Alcohol Funny.
Well, the Fall Nationals from Bristol, Tennessee have been brought to you by Motorcraft Quality Parts from Ford and by Drag Review, all you need to know about drag racing. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage of IHRA drag racing this year here on ESPN. My thanks to Brett Kepner, who worked the pit area, and to Larry Nuber in the booth. For now, this is Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone.